What's up, everyone? Happy NFL Conference Championship weekend. I am TJ Zwarych. This is NFL Pre-Lock. We got the dynamic duo in the house today, joined by my friend Kristi Metzer. How you doing today, Kristi?
I'm doing great, TJ. I know we were talking just beforehand. It's like, how did we get here? Football season has gone extremely fast, but these are probably two of the games I've been looking forward to see the most all week long. I think they're going to be two good ones, a lot of great storylines in a lot of different ways. So I kind of like these two-game slates too, so it'll be fun to break it down with you.
Yeah, these little two-gamers have been where I've actually had my most success throughout the NFL season. Like last weekend for the four-gamer, basically lost all my money. For the two-gamer, made it all back. And so hopefully this weekend, without the four-gamer, just with the two-gamer, we'll be able to make something happen today. Sounds like we're both going to be on the same quarterback, so we will get to that. But before we do, smash that like button if you're watching us on YouTube. Nice and easy to do. All you got to do is take your mouse, slide it over, give it a little click. If you're watching on your phone, it's tougher. Last time we did the demonstration, it went so well. We'll do it again today. You got to go over to your phone. You can see my beautiful background with my lovely wife.
Love it.
Go into YouTube. I'll make sure my sound is turned all the way down so it doesn't go crazy. You go into YouTube on your phone, and then bam, I bet you when you open YouTube, we're going to be right there near the top. And there you are, right there. And so you give us a click. But where's the like button? You can't find the like button. It's just the chat. So you got to click hide chat, the little X right there. Give us a like. And then that's all we ask. It's free content on a Sunday for the playoffs. If you got any question, get them into the YouTube chat. Get them into the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat. We're going to go through position by position for these two games. We're going to talk a little splash sports, a little bit of player props, and then we will take your questions and get out of here. If we're going right to lock, great. If you got the questions, we'll take you right to lock. If not, we'll get out of here a little bit early, give you some chance to build some lineups. We'll look at some SimLabs. We'll look at some lineup HQ. Let's get into it. Kristi, what's your overview for this little two-gamer we got for the conference championships?
Yeah, I think for just a two-game slate, I think it's one of those, I think there's a lot of interesting ways to go. And, some of the big things to think about, you and I were talking about a little bit beforehand, is you got a guy like Saquon Barkley, who is really probably pretty underpriced too on DraftKings. I mean, he's going to be wildly popular, but I think that's a decision point for me. He's just someone I'm locking in all of my lineups, but he is someone that you really need to think about. I think for the quarterback situation, that's where it gets a little bit interesting too, because Mahomes is projecting pretty well in a lot of the optimals. So it makes a guy like Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels a little bit more underowned. And I know those are a couple of quarterbacks that you and I both like. And then you look at like a team like Kansas City, where there's just a lot of question marks. Normally we'd be looking a lot at their running game, but you've got Pacheco back. He hasn't been doing very well. You still have Kareem Hunt in the mix. I think those are a couple guys that are going to come in lower owned. And normally you'd see them a little bit more popular. And then there's a lot of wild cards with the receiving game for Kansas City too, which makes it interesting. Guys like Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and then, backup tight end, Noah Gray. So there's a lot of different interesting ways to go in that regard too. So again, I think for a two-game slate, I think one of the big things is the Saquon Barkley. What are you going to do there? Are you going to fade him? Or are you going to go all in? Or, what's your strategy? For me, I think he's a guy that you just lock in and you move on.
Yeah, exactly. It is a very, very tough situation tonight. That is the talking point of the slate, is what do we do with Saquon Barkley? I'm going to go right to, we'll maybe start with the running back position instead of the quarterback position today, because he has a 84% optimal rate tonight in SimLabs, and he's 84.7% ownership rate. He's in single entry and higher dollar. He's going to be even higher than that. He'll be above 90. What do you do with Saquon Barkley? Do you lock him in, let everybody else play the rake? Do you just X him out and say, if he fails, I'm going to have all the combinations to win the money tonight? How are you handling Saquon?
Yeah, for me, I'm locking him in, TJ. He just has so much upside, and he's underpriced too. He really is. DraftKings really kind of missed the boat on the price tag here, but he should be a 10K type of guy. I think it's a situation kind of similar to last year when you had like Christian McCaffrey, and I think you just take the lock on it and move on. At least that's what I'm going to do. There's still plenty of ways to get different. Even at 84% ownership, there's still some players that are going to fade him a little bit. I'm just going to lock him in.
I'm not quite doing that, but I'm doing a similar type strategy. I'm doing a 20 entry max where I'm basically locking them in. I checked, I have them in 19 of 20 of those 20 entry max builds. But then I did do something, one higher dollar one in the large field with no Saquon, just in case. I like building with a very, I'm not just going to fade Saquon for the sake of fading him and, just spend up at every other position because I feel like that's what everybody doing fading Saquon is going to do. But I am going to build a couple lineups where they have a plan, and the plan is essentially it's a low-scoring game and the Commanders win. Will that happen? Probably not. But the Eagles are going to be without their starting center in this one. They're all pro starting center. He's going to be dressed, but only used in an emergency role. So Jalen Hurts is struggling, has been struggling a little bit. He's dealing with that knee issue. He's going to have a brace. What if the offense just isn't working today? And Washington defense is the only player you want from that game. And then we can just stack up this other one. What if one game ends 15-10, the other ones end 35-32? I'm building a couple lineups for if that's the case today.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I agree with you. Like, Saquon is the guy. It's just about what you want to do with it. He's going to be 85, 90% owned. He's going to be optimal 85 to 90% of the time too. You're basically just hoping for the Eagles offense completely to fail, or because it's really easy to get them, we have the value to get to him, or some kind of injury in this spot. That's the only way fading him is really going to be working. So it's definitely the biggest talking point, the biggest risk reward type scenario. Chris Longo in chat asking if it's a 3 running back, a 4 wide receiver, or a 2 tight end day today. I don't really think it has to be a 2 running or a 3 running back day at all.
I agree. I completely agree.
Who would be your favorite pairing with Saquon Barkley today? And then who are your next options you're looking to as well?
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I found myself too, as I was doing builds, I'm not really getting to the 3 running backs at all. In fact, I just think there's so many better players. But my pairing with Saquon Barkley that I really like is getting James Cook. I've really liked. We talked a little bit about Josh Allen. I know we haven't gotten to the quarterbacks yet, but the Josh Allen James Cook pairing has been phenomenal, and I think Noto talked about it a little bit. I wrote about it a little bit this week too, but you're really looking to capture all the touchdowns, and it's really been actually a positive correlation having those two. So for me, I really like getting to Barkley and Cook and then kind of building from there. And I think Cook might come in a little bit under-owned too, because he is a little bit more expensive, and it does make you sacrifice at some of your receivers and things like that. But that's my favorite combination. Looking past that, I do think Eckler, I like Eckler over Brian Robinson. So if I'm not getting to James Cook, I do like Barkley and maybe Eckler. And then on the Kansas City side, I think Kareem Hunt is a sneaky play. He has scored in the last few games here. He's clearly the guy that they're using over Pacheco, which is pretty interesting here come playoffs. So I lean a little bit toward Hunt. So for me, a lot of Barkley and Cook, but then you kind of mix in some Eckler and Hunt as well.
Yeah, I love those calls. I am looking to build with a very similar approach today. Cook is my second favorite guy. Eckler's third, Hunt fourth. Nothing special. Pardon me. I was sick for about 2 weeks, and then I finally got better, and then I went to a Sum 41 concert, and I'm still better. I'm not sick anymore, but I haven't had my voice fully back since that concert last week. Like, I've still kind of had this scratchiness that prevents my full voice from being back since all the singing I was doing fresh off of the recovery. So apologies for my voice. It's still a little hoarse here, but nothing special in my approach at running back. Like, Barkley's 1, Cook's 2, Eckler's 3, Hunt's 4. That's exactly how I'm playing it as well. I only have Pacheco, I think, in one of my lineups. I'm playing
Yep.
Brian Robinson in a very specific way, and that's when I'm fading Saquon Barkley. I'm playing Brian Robinson in lineups where I think Washington dominates the game. You know, I have the defense.
Yep.
I have Brian Robinson. They get ahead in this game and they limit the Eagles' defense. That's the only type of situation I really want to play Brian Robinson. We had somebody ask about Ray Davis in chat. Last week, people were talking about Ray Davis, fresh back off a concussion, and I said, nah, don't do it. I think he's probably just going to play in an emergency role. And then he ended up going in because James Cook had a big play that brought him down to the 1, 2, 3 yard line, whatever it was, and then Ray Davis rushed in the touchdown. So I was wrong on that one. Are you going to play any of the backup running backs in this spot? Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, Kenneth Gainwell?
I'm not really getting to them because I'm playing more. I'm doing the 20 entry max, like on DK, but more single entry type stuff on FanDuel and DraftKings too. But I'm really not getting to them there. I think if you're doing 150 lineups, absolutely. Ray Davis is a guy I actually like quite a bit. I mean, he's got for being a rookie, he's got a lot of potential, and he's had a couple of games where he's gotten some touchdowns and things like that. A little bit more of a boom and bust type of play, but for 20 entry builds, I'm really not getting to any of those guys, but I definitely keep them in your pool if you're doing some of the large field GPPs.
Yeah, something I feel very similarly about. Ty Johnson's probably the one I like the best, and then Kenneth Gainwell, just because of how crazy owned Saquon Barkley is, just in case something happens, it does feel tempting. I don't have either of them right now, but that might be something I try and just get them each in one lineup here before we conclude the show. Let's pivot back to the quarterback position because, running back, it's just what do I do with Saquon Barkley? Do I play him or I not? Do I try and get different there or do I try and get different elsewhere? Quarterback position, we have one guy looking like he's going quite a bit higher owned than the others. The others should be fairly close together. We have Josh Allen coming in at the second highest owned, but if we've seen anything over the course of these playoffs, it's that anything can happen with ownership at quarterback. The very first playoff slate, we were projecting Lamar for 50%, Justin Herbert for 20%. Everybody went, ooh, I want to play the lower owned guy. And Herbert ended up coming in at 37%, Lamar 36%. So anything could happen here at quarterbacks. Sims are saying Patrick Mahomes is the highest optimal rate. He's also going to be the highest owned. What do you want to do at quarterback?
Yeah. So for me, as I've kind of been, looking at the Sims, kind of doing some projections, throughout the last week. Yes, Mahomes is coming in as the most optimal play. But, since the beginning of the week, it's really been Josh Allen for me. The upside is so huge for him. He's been getting so many touchdowns. I mean, he's just been making things happen. And I think Noto wrote him up. I wrote him up. He's just a guy I want a lot of exposure to. I've got him in my single entry lineup on both sites. I just think the upside when you compare it to he and Mahomes is significant. And Mahomes is typically not a guy I play a ton of anyways. Now here we are in a 2-game slate. So yes, it does make some sense because there's a lot of good plays to correlate him with. But I'd rather get exposure. I'm gonna get exposure to like Kelsey and Xavier Worthy are two guys that I really like. But for me, there's just no comparison on the upside that Josh gives you compared to Mahomes. So it's Josh Allen for me. I can see if you get to Mahomes, I think he's more of a cash game type play. And then for tournaments too, probably my next guy after Allen would be Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's just been absolutely amazing. He did well against Philadelphia the last time they played. Granted, Hurts had gotten injured in that game, but I think the upside is huge for him too. So I like his style of play for tournaments as well. But yeah, for my single entry, even 3-entry max, it's really Josh Allen leading the way for me.
Me too. I would be trying to get up to him in a cash game format. I would be trying to get up to him in single entry. And he is by far my most popular quarterback today. He's locked in my 20-entry max. He's locked in my higher dollar stuff. And then I just did a 3-entry max, one with Daniels, one with Hurts, one with Mahomes, full stacks, full game stacks, just in case I'm wrong. But if I'm wrong, I'm probably just going to lose today. I'm going to be way underweight on Mahomes. I'd rather take shots on Hurts or Daniels if I'm going to, if I am going to try and get off of Mahomes and I don't want to play Allen. Allen's my clear number one. Then Mahomes comes in fourth just because of his ownership today.
Yep.
I think it's like a really, really sharp thing to do in a tournament is just to play Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert, run it back with Eckler and McLaurin, and say Jalen Hurts passes for all the touchdowns. Saquon Barkley rushes for 120 yards, but he doesn't score a touchdown, something we saw multiple times throughout the season. He's not optimal because Hurts threw for 4. Not something we're expecting considering how the Eagles offense has looked lately with Barkley being their only thing that works. But who knows? Maybe Washington just says, like, we're going to stack the box 8-9 guys in there all the time and make Hurts throw the ball. And if that happens, I think that's a really sharp way to get different from the field, because I don't think, say if 90% of the people play Hurts, are playing Barkley, those other 10% of the lineups, they're not going to all be Jalen Hurts. They'll probably 5% be Hurts, but I think it's a sharp way to get different. If you do a full game stack without Barkley, that's another way of getting different from the field. Jaden Daniels, same thing. You can build a beautiful game stack. There's lots of guys to pair him with. We already had a question of what to do with Zacchaeus, Diami Brown. We'll get to that more in depth at receiver. But I think with Jaden Daniels, like, for one, you don't have to stack him much because of his rushing ability. But two, I'm actually comfortable with any of these receiving pairings today. Like, Zacchaeus has done nothing the past couple of weeks. It's been all Diami Brown. But if you want to play just the cheap guys, Ertz, Zacchaeus, Brown, fade McLaurin, or if you want to fade Zacchaeus or fade Brown, play Zacchaeus, I think any of the combinations are fine. Optimal would definitely be, I think, Diami Brown and Terry McLaurin with Saquon Barkley, but that'll definitely be the most common stack with Jaden Daniels, I think, too.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you're on Allen as well too. I was kind of looking back to, I mean, we saw him put up 44 fantasy points against the Lions earlier this year. And then he had another game, 55 fantasy points against the Rams. So, I mean, he's just had some monster outings where you need to have him on your team to win. And I just think it's a great stand to take on him, especially when Mahomes is carrying quite a bit more ownership and popping in a lot more optimal lineups. I really like the Allen call.
Ooh, I did. I got one Ty Johnson in, and I like the 2v2 with him better. I went Ty Johnson and Diami Brown over Curtis Samuel and Xavier Worthy. So I'm totally comfortable with that 2v2. And then I just did a Gainwell one where I'm going to be fading Barkley. So another lineup where I'm going to fade Barkley, plugged in Gainwell, allow me to get James Cook and AJ Brown with them. So I like it. I like the things
absolutely
that, I managed to squiggle in there. Let's pivot over to the receiver position here. This is where I think the slate's going to be won. Because
exactly right. Yep.
It's like, to Barkley or not to Barkley is always there, but chances are Barkley's going to have, 24 points and you're probably going to need him. But here is where things get tough because Eagles receivers haven't done squat recently. Terry McLaurin has been elite despite Cliff Kingsbury refusing to move him around, refused to get him more involved. But Jaden Daniels has been going to him in the playoffs, and McLaurin's been elite all year. Shakir is the ultimate, I'm going to get you 12 points guy. He's going to get you 6 receptions for 60 to 70 yards because that's what he always does. They don't go to him in the red zone. They don't go to him in the end zone. The only time Shakir gets touchdowns is when he breaks off a long one because he breaks a lot of tackles, which he can do. We've already gone through the Diami Brown Zacchaeus conversation a little bit. Zacchaeus is the guy if you want to get different. Diami is the guy that's most likely to get there because he's been it recently. But we've also seen every now and then that switch to Zacchaeus and Brown. Like it's never set in stone. It was Zacchaeus for 4 weeks in a row before it was Brown. If you're playing Josh Allen, you have this plethora of cheapies you can utilize him with. Regardless of the pricing tier, who are the guys that you're like, okay, this is my priority to get in my lineup?
Yeah, so I think you're exactly right. This is where things are going to be won. I think the receiver there's a lot of different ways to go, and you kind of just have to look at it and say, who are the guys that I, kind of talk about a story in your mind of how you think the game script is going to go, what guys could get there. So for me, one of the guys at the top, I really like Xavier Worthy. He's really one of my guys. He's reasonably priced on both sites, and I just like how they use him. I mean, he's really a guy that they're, looking to game script around. I mean, we've seen him have some good rushing attempts. We've seen him, just be utilized in a lot of different ways. So he's someone that I'm making it a priority. I'd rather have Xavier Worthy than I'd rather have Shakir. Like you said, Shakir is really a guy who's going to get you your 12, 13 points, and that's about it. So Shakir really isn't somebody that I'm interested in having to have in my lineup, but Xavier Worthy is. So I like him quite a bit. De'Ami Brown, like you said, he's someone I'm very interested in. He's a good price on both sites, but even taking that, outside, the targets just have been there for him. He had 8 targets last game, 5 targets the game before. Obviously, he can score touchdowns. So those are 2 guys I like quite a bit. Then I think, it gets interesting at the bottom. You've got a guy like Hollywood Brown, who was, everybody was kind of after him, and he just didn't do anything last week. But I think the ceiling is still up there for him. So I still like him a lot. He's really too cheap for the role that he has in the offense too. So I like him. But then I think guys like where I think it gets really interesting, TJ, I'd be curious to see your take on it too, is a guy like DeAndre Hopkins is going overlooked. You've got a guy like Mac Hollins in the Buffalo. I could easily see him scoring a touchdown. I mean, he's out there. He's getting looks. He did have an opportunity to have a couple of big plays last outing. So I like that quite a bit. But I think, like you said, kind of with some of these mid-tier receivers, they're really going to make or break the week. But for me, I want to get a lot of Xavier Worthy, a lot of De'Ami Brown. I do like Terry McLaurin too, if you're paying up. But I'd rather actually, kind of sacrifice, since I'm getting Barkley and getting Josh Allen, and I want to get James Cook. I'm probably going to have to pay down a little bit for receivers. So that's where I'm getting to more Worthy, more Brown, more Hollywood, De'Ami Brown and Hollywood Brown in my lineups.
Among the spend ups, McLaurin's going to be my favorite. I find myself usually in each lineup getting one spend up receiver. I do think it's important to note, specifically on FanDuel, I'm a lot more interested in the Buffalo receivers on FanDuel than I am on DraftKings, because they're all in the low 3Ks on DraftKings or in the mid 3Ks. Whereas on FanDuel, 5K Hollins, 5,300 Samuel. I would way rather play De'Ami Brown for $100 more. Like, De'Ami Brown is a much better play there to me, but he's $1,000 more expensive on DraftKings. So that's where I'm interested in those Buffalo guys on DraftKings, because they're so cheap. It allows me to play, if I double stack with those cheap receivers, I can play Allen, Barkley, Cook, Kelsey, get all of these guys in the same lineup and just hope and pray they score a touchdown. If they do, I can win a GPP. If they don't, I can probably still min cash because I have all these other expensive pieces in my lineup as long as they hit. So I like them quite a bit on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I'm more likely to go to the Washington guys, to the Worthies, to the Shakirs, stick in that mid-range. The one guy I'd want to point out who has a great price tag on FanDuel is Keon Coleman. All he needs, you don't know if he's going to get it, but all he needs is that long completion. They will throw him 2 to 5 deep balls. It's just about whether or not they complete him. If they complete it for a touchdown, you're going to need him at that price on FanDuel. So I do really like taking shots on Keon Coleman. Low ownership, great price tag. And on both sites, large field tournaments, I don't have this right now, but I was just thinking about it. Like, Jamison Crowder was back in our lives last week for Washington. If you're playing Jaden Daniels lineups and you're trying to win $1 million in those large field contests, try some Jamison Crowder for super cheap with them. It allows you to get Barkley. It allows you to get Kelsey, these other spend ups. And Juju Smith-Schuster actually ran just as many routes as DeAndre Hopkins last week. So if you're playing Mahomes, know that Mahomes is going to be the chalkiest quarterback on the slate. Maybe you do a little DeAndre, maybe you do a little Juju as a way to get very different with your Mahomes lineups. I'm with you. If I'm playing Josh Allen, I like running it back with Xavier Worthy. We know he's going to be involved, big play threat. But if I'm playing Mahomes, and I need to get different elsewhere, then
Exactly.
I think I want to take shots on the Hopkins, on the Jujus in there as well. Let's go over to the tight end position because this isn't quite as extreme as Saquon Barkley, but it's pretty darn close to Kelsey or not to Kelsey. He did nothing all year. Everyone's going, is Kelsey washed? And he's kind of sitting there going like, yeah, we're in first place. I don't need to be the guy for a 17 game season. I can just be ready, make sure I'm ready to go and healthy for playoffs. He's actually coming in with a lower ownership percentage than optimal rates. I think optimally speaking, it might be a 2 tight end week because Kelsey is great on both sides. He's affordable because of the value that we have.
Yep.
And maybe not on FanDuel 2 tight end. I think there are other options I like other than Goddard, Ertz, Kincaid in the 5K range on FanDuel. But when you switch this over to DraftKings, all of a sudden guys like Dalton Kincaid are super, super cheap. And I like Dalton Kincaid better than Samuel or Hollins. I like Zach Ertz at 43. I like Dallas Goedert at 45. That's kind of when it becomes a 2 tight end week. So first question is, what do you want to do with Travis Kelce? Second question, how do you rank Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz in line with Hollywood Brown, Diami Brown, DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah, so for me, Travis Kelce is a guy I'm building around. And you talked about it. Like, they really didn't need to use him during the season just because they were winning. Like you said, people kind of thought he was washed. But here we are, playoffs, and who does Mahomes trust? It's Travis Kelce. And he's had some big games, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he has another game like he did last outing. And I want Travis Kelce. So, he and Worthy are 2 guys that are kind of core pieces of that Kansas City offense that I want to get my builds with Josh Allen. So for me, it's definitely Kelce. I do like a lot of the 2 tight end builds. You mentioned Kincaid, really on both sides. I mean, 3,600 on DraftKings is way too cheap for Kincaid. He's only 5,200 over on FanDuel, so I like that quite a bit. After Kelce, I do like Ertz. He's going playing against his old team. I think it's actually a pretty good matchup for him. I like that. I like getting some exposure to that. I maybe have him just a touch ahead of Goddard, but I like both. I like Ertz and Goddard, Kelce. A couple guys I'll mention in there too. Dawson Knox can really make a lot of things work too. And I mean, you got 2, they run some 2 tight end sets. Certainly love Kincaid, but I could see Knox, especially in the playoffs. That's where things can get a little bit different. And all it takes is a touchdown from him to land on the optimal lineup, especially when you're, in the millionaire contests and some of the larger field GPPs. I think Dawson Knox is worth a look, as is like a guy like Noah Gray. Both guys that you probably want a little bit of exposure if you're building multiple lineups. But yeah, for me, Kelce's a core play. After that, Goddard, Ertz, Kincaid. I like mixed in there and probably, building 2 tight ends in most of my lineups, and then mixing in both Knox and Gray, especially for some of my 20 entry builds.
I just adjusted my Hertz lineup, and so I have Goddard and Ertz in it, and fading Kelce, fading Barkley. So that's my one that it's like, if all the chalk fails.
See, there you go. Yeah.
That's my one lineup that may get there today.
Love it. And for large field stuff, like you're kind of talking about too, TJ, that's where you really can make a big difference and really lap the field if some of the chalk fails.
All right, so let's go touch on a little bit of defense here, but defense doesn't really matter all too much because the scores might matter, but we have no way of truly predicting which one might get a pick six, which one might return one for a touchdown here. So we'll give our quick thoughts on defense, then we'll pivot to a little bit of splash sports stuff, and then some questions here. We still got a lot of time before lock to get to your questions, so throw them into the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat, throw them into the YouTube chat. YouTube, make sure you are smashing that like button for us. Defense here, I think ideally if you can get up to the Philadelphia defense, great. That's the best case scenario. Anybody else is fine. I actually do really like the Washington defense because they're cheap, and Philly's been giving up a lot of sacks recently, and now they're without their all-pro center. So Washington for 2,700 might be my actual favorite today. But you can go any of these guys.
Absolutely. I do love Philadelphia, and I do think they are, there's enough value out there to get them in your lineup. And I just think they make a ton of sense. But I'm with you. Number 2 for me is Washington. And if you saw last week, they were on the, like the millionaire winning contest. They were the defense. So I think,
it was Stafford with Washington defense.
Yeah.
Two things that people like. Stafford,
exactly.
Nobody wanted to get to, and then you had the super cheap defense going there too.
Exactly. So I like those two. Probably third for me is Kansas City. I'm just really not getting to any Buffalo, but think you can. I always kind of build my lineups, kind of see where I'm at, where I want to jockey things around. But yeah, a lot of Philadelphia, a lot of Washington for me.
Yeah, that is same page here as well. I do have some Bills and a little bit of Chiefs just because sometimes, but for the most part,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm definitely prioritizing the defenses in that first game as well. I mentioned right off the hop, I do like the under in that game. And so that's kind of where I'm going to be looking to go from a defensive standpoint. Let's talk a little Splash Sports because we got a great deal going on at RotoGrinders with Splash Sports. You go to splashsports.com/RotoGrinders homepage. And if you spend $100 on Quick Picks, you can get $50 right back with promo code ROTO10. So that's splashsports.com/RotoGrinders homepage, code ROTO10. I got it scrolling right down there at the bottom of the screen. There are quite a few prop plays I'm interested in today. And so the first one that I want to throw out here for us to take a look at on Splash Sports is I'm going to Patrick Mahomes. He's super popular in DFS. I don't know if I'm getting to him there, but this is my favorite prop on the slate. Patrick Mahomes, more than 4.5 rushing attempts. He's been rushing a lot all playoff. He's going to maybe kneel if they're winning at the end of the game. You got some sneak potential in there. I like Mahomes more than 4.5 rushing attempts is my favorite prop on the slate.
I like that a lot. That's actually a really good one. I hadn't looked at a ton of these before we started here, but I was just kind of scrolling through too, and that's definitely one that stood out. Like you said, he has been getting a lot more rushing attempts here lately, so that's a good one.
How about, do you have any props in mind today, some stuff you've been looking at?
Yeah, so on the prop side, let me just pull that up here real quick.
You're still doing I did have a question for Don in the YouTube chat. Been working through some things with him as he's playing Showdown for the first game. He asked who's the cheapest player I'd be looking to play in that game. I do think, like going back to what he had earlier, actually, John Bates in that scenario would be somewhat viable in a showdown just for that game as an all-out punt. But having said that, if I can afford it, I would much rather get up to Jamison Crowder would be my top punt option at 2.4. He'd be the favorite one to get to. Zacchaeus at 4K in the kicker range. I'd be more likely to build around the mid-tier as opposed to all-out punting, maybe fade Jalen Hurts and play Daniels, Barkley in the mid-tier. But if I had to punt, my favorite would be Crowder at 2.4. If you wanted to go all the way down to Bates at 1.2, I don't think that's wrong in that scenario.
Yep. Like it. One of the props, and I know actually Britt had written this up over on Scores and Odds, but Jaden Daniels over 21.5 completions was one of his favorites, and that's one that I had kind of penciled down to, one that I really like as well. As Britt said, Daniels has gone over that number in all 8 of his last full games played, so that's one to look at.
That's a really good one. I wish I would have taken that as opposed to his rushing yards that I took today in my card, but I didn't, and I should have. I like that better than the Daniels one I had included in there because if I'm not mistaken, I took his more than 54.5 rushing yards today. Next one I'd want to throw in. There's 2 receiving yard props for running backs I like on this slate. First one, I'd want to go to James Cook. On On Splash, actually, let's see if they don't have his 1.5 receptions, but James Cook more than 14.5 receiving yards is my next favorite one to go
I
to.
like that.
And then if it's available, I like the exact same one for Saquon Barkley. 14.5 receiving yards feels too low for him.
That
Like
feels too
those,
low.
yeah, like those ones a lot. Do you have one more you want to throw in there to make a five card to go 25x over on Splash Sports?
Yeah, let's see. Last one, I would say. See, what is James Cook? I like the over on his rushing yards. I know it was 55.5. I just like him to have a big game today on the rushing side of things. So let's see here, James Cook.
We do already have his receiving yards, so we wouldn't be able to throw another Cook one on it.
Oh, that's right. We do, don't we? Yeah, let's see here. What else?
I had a couple others that I did include, but I just don't feel near as confident on them. It's like Josh Allen rushing attempts more than 9.5. The Jaden Daniels one we had talked about, but we do already have Daniels as one in there.
Yeah.
The only other one I had, which isn't, I don't know if I'd want to do on Splash because it's a site that doesn't have like the amplified prices, like where you can take touchdowns and it adds to your thing. So I did have Kelsey to score a touchdown, but the only other one would have been Dallas Goedert more than 3.5 receptions.
Oh yeah, it's good.
So good. Basically just hoping, they have to get out some quick passes to their running back and tight end without their starting center in the game there. So you see, we got 25x on Splash. We got Mahomes, we got Daniels, we got Cook, we got Barkley, we got Goddard. We got about 6 minutes left to lock, so it's time to take your questions. First up, going to the RotoGrinders live stream Discord from Luke Cage 78, and I'm actually in the middle of my there's Daredevil Born Again coming out on Disney Plus, the new Marvel show in March, and it's a continuation of the shows that used to be on Netflix. And so I'm watching all my Netflix Marvel Universe shows now that they're on Disney Plus as a preparation for that. And I'm on Luke Cage as we speak. I'm in the middle of my rewatch of Luke Cage. So he says Devonta Smith, Xavier Worthy, and Bills defense, Xavier Worthy's in both of these. So Devonta Smith and Devonta Smith and Bills defense, or Kelsey and Washington defense.
For me, I'd go Kelsey and
it's with Hurts though.
It's with Hurts, though. Okay, I see. That does make a difference. I really like Kelsey today, though, so it'd be hard for me to get away from Kelsey. I think I'd still go Kelsey and Washington D.
That'll definitely allow you to get a little bit different as well because you're going to Washington against Philly there, but essentially hoping there is a path to success with Hurts scores the rushing touchdowns, not Barkley. And that's all you need is he's a rushing quarterback. He gets in there. And all of a sudden you are cooking against the field. Switching over to the YouTube chat. Let's see here. How many positions to save for game 2? Your thoughts? So personally, I'm trying to play in most of my lineups as few of players in the first game as possible outside of a defense and Saquon as I can. And I'm trying to load up on as many people in the second game as I possibly can. DKGPP, pick one, Hollywood or DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, for a tournament, I'm assuming. I think Hollywood's definitely going to be more popular. I think Hopkins for like large field GPPs is super, super interesting. I'd probably go him just for tournaments because Hollywood at his price point, he's going to be very popular.
McLaurin or AJ Brown in a cash and single entry GPP lineup?
Ooh, I think I like McLaurin just a little bit better, but they're both great plays. I mean, and they're both $100 apart. I think I'd just slightly take McLaurin.
Favorite MVP for showdown in both of these games on FanDuel. So on the second game, it would definitely be Josh Allen for me. I assume that's the same for you as well, but maybe James
absolutely.
Cook as a sneaky pivot in large field stuff.
Yep.
on FanDuel for the first game, I think just looking at the projected ownership, I think it would actually still be Saquon Barkley for me. I was thinking it was going to be Jaden Daniels if it was going to be a big gap, but those two are projecting very similarly in terms of ownership right now. So Saquon would probably be the guy, but I don't hate Daniels. If you're trying to get very different, I think McLaurin would be my favorite for a large field.
Yep. Nope. I completely agree. But yeah, I think it's really the decision between Barkley and Daniels, just with the upside they both have.
What do you think about Amari Cooper today as part of our Josh Allen tracks?
I know, we didn't talk about him at all, did we? But, there you go. There's another one of those receivers that, again, if he gets 1 or 2 catches, happens to get a touchdown, he could easily just vault you up there. So I don't mind that in large field tournaments at all. I really don't.
DK, large field GPP, Zacchaeus, Hunt, and Washington defense, or Knox, Devonta Smith, and Eagles defense?
I think I'd go the second one, Eagles defense. What is it, Knox?
Devonta
Eagles
Smith,
D and
Eagles D.
Devonta Smith, yeah.
FanDuel Cash Flex, Eckler or Ertz?
Yeah, that's kind of one that I kind of found myself in too. I think they're both great. I like both of them, have good exposure to both of them. Probably would lean Eckler, but it's close. Both good plays.
All right. What else do we got here? Is that it for question? Any punt plays in the late game? We love playing Josh Allen. And so if you're playing some Josh Allen in the late game on DraftKings specifically, punting with those cheap Bills wide receivers or Dalton Kincaid in the flex position looks really good as a full punt as well. FanDuel Cash, who's your top priority at wide receiver?
FanDuel Cash, I would say Xavier Worthy.
Ertz and Bills or Goddard and Washington for FanDuel GPP?
Ertz and Bills or Goddard and Washington? I would go Goddard and Washington.
Kelsey and Knox or Kelsey and Gray? Oh, so Gray or Knox on in GPPs on DraftKings?
I think it's slightly, I like Gray just a little bit more, but they're both really good sneaky GPP plays.
Noah Gray and Bills or Kincaid in Washington? That is definitely Kincaid in Washington.
Kincaid in Washington, yep.
Devonta Smith or Kareem Hunt, DK Cash?
DK Cash. Yeah, I'd go. I think you have to because he's been getting the touchdowns. Yeah, last 3 games. Yep.
1 minute left to lock, and we have hit all the questions. Great job, everybody. Smash that like button for us, and good luck today in all of your contests. We got a really fun one with 2 what should be really good games. We got a rookie quarterback trying to prove that he is already among the top QBs in the league. I mean, he already is among the top ones, but like top 5 QBs in the league by taking out Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles today. We have the Bills and the Chiefs in a mega rematch. Chiefs always win in the playoffs. Bills always win in the regular season. Bills are trying to flip that today. Mahomes trying to three-peat going into his 3rd straight Super Bowl. We got a really, really fun day of sports ahead of us. So good luck today, everybody. Kristi, before we get out of here, who is breaking the slate?
Who's today's breaking the slate? I think we're going to see a big game from Xavier Worthy today for the Chiefs. So I like him for breaking the slate. And aside from Saquon.
Yeah, and you're going to want to pair him with Josh Allen on the other side. Everybody's going to be playing Mahomes and Worthy.
That's right.
We want to play Josh Allen with Worthy on the other side.
Yes,
maybe pair him with James Cook. Get yourself all that touchdown equity. Good luck today, everybody. Hope you win some contests. On behalf of myself and Kristi, we wish you the best of luck. We will see you next time. Peace.